Hey guys, welcome to Muscle Memory. My name's Malcolm. We're talking to the pro wrestling Joe Rogan today. I mean, this guy is massive. It's Chris Van Vleet. How are you?
You're talking about me? Oh my goodness. I
I'm
was like,
talking
who do
about
you got
you.
on here? This is exciting. Dude,
I'm still
it's
talking
so
about
good to
you,
see
man.
you. Hey, congrats to you, by the way, on everything.
Nah, nah. I appreciate you saying it.
Look, I don't know if everybody sees the grind that you put in. It's like I'll go to an event that I'm like working at, and you're like, yeah, man, I just showed up here with the chance that maybe I can interview this person. I'm like, oh, cool. Where are you staying tonight? I'm just going right back to the airport tonight, and
Yeah,
I'll sleep there if I have to. It's like, dude,
I
you're
appreciate
you're
that.
grinding, and I just want to acknowledge you, not in the bloodline kind of way, just creator to creator. I want to acknowledge you for all the hard work you're putting in.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. Last time I slept in the airport, someone stole one of my big fancy hats. So
Oh,
now I
come
feel
on.
some kind of way about that.
Come
So
on. What are they going to do with it?
I don't know. I don't know. Like, why? Like, out of all things to take, there's cameras, there's laptops. You take the hat. Like, come on, like that. What a weird time to live in. But
But maybe they were doing you a favor, though, because those big hats are probably not that easy to travel with.
they are actually really uncomfortable to travel with. I always have to carry them, and then they don't fit in the book bag because then that'll
Yep.
squish up. But it's a whole thing, honestly. But people be people sometimes. Not everyone's the greatest. But dude, I have a very important first question. I feel like this is the one that we have to jump out of the gate with. Do you know what MFT stands for? Because I'm still trying to figure this out. On SmackDown, Solo
Yeah,
Sikoa referred to Tamatanga as his MFT. I don't know what that means. Do you have any idea of what this could be?
I do. The second he said it, I was like, absolutely. It's mackerel fish tacos. That's what he meant.
Oh, see, I was thinking like my favorite thumb because he'd be wrapping his thumb up.
That's true. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
that could be it. That could be it. I also was thinking, there's another one. It could be. It could be micro fresh tomatoes. Like when you go to the grocery store, they've got the little tomatoes.
Ooh. Yeah. I mean, I guess. I mean, I maybe not. He doesn't look like much of a tomato eater personally, but I mean, like it's possible. I mean, fruit salad, yummy, yummy.
Yeah,
I was thinking Modern Family Tree, which that might go a little more on the basic side, I guess. But
I
I mean,
think
we
that
think
could
about it
be
because they're
it.
kind of related.
Yeah. There's actually MFT is actually a job title. It's a marriage and family therapist. So maybe family therapy, the bloodlines, a lot of things going on there. Maybe they need an MFT.
Makes sense. It's like when Kane and Daniel Bryan went to therapy, but says Solo's gonna do it for the bloodline.
That's it. MFT.
I'm so happy you figured this out. I mean, it could have been anything in the world, but I'm glad we talked about this. Thank you. Honestly, we can end the interview right there. I mean, guys, thank you for
That's
watching.
it.
This is
Well,
great.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
great to
it's
see you, man. I'm
great
glad we
talking to
solved
you.
solved wrestling's greatest mystery just like that.
Simple enough, man. But no, I mean, I'm gonna talk to you for a couple more minutes. I mean, you're so busy and you do so much, Mr. Chris Van Vliet. What's like a day in your life look like? Because you seem like a incredibly busy guy.
I think the thing is we're all busy, right? We're all busy in our own way. And it's just the way that you kind of have your day planned out. And a big part of my day now is being a dad. So here's the thing. I thought I was busy before. And now we've got our 11-month-old daughter, Logan. And I was like, oh, I thought I was busy then. Like, it's crazy. And God bless my incredible wife, Rachel, who takes such good care of our little girl when I'm not around. But this is the cool thing about what I do now, Malcolm, is like no 2 days are the same. And that's what I feel like I'm so grateful for that is like some days it's flying to an event or flying to where someone lives to do an interview. Some days it's on the back end, you're producing it or editing it, or I'm writing intros for the podcast.
Yeah.
Other days, like I still do a lot of entertainment reporting. So there's some days where I'm on a red carpet or I'm at a movie premiere or something like that. And that's what I love is like today is going to be vastly different from tomorrow. And the day after that's going to look nothing like those other ones.
What a humble flex. Sometimes I might be on a red carpet. Yeah, I might be flying to so
I'm
and so's
just
house.
saying.
No, I'm just messing with you. No, that's amazing, man. Like, has your daughter got into wrestling yet? Have you showed her any wrestling? I know I saw the
I've
video that
showed
you
it.
took her to a show, right?
We tried, but every Monday Raw is on, every Friday SmackDown's on, every Wednesday Dynamite's on. I don't know if she's really into it. Like she's definitely a lot more excited when we put Miss Rachel on the TV from YouTube, who's singing her like these songs. But she's definitely been introduced to it, and yeah, we tried. We tried to take her to Raw when Raw was in Anaheim here about 2 months ago. We were so excited. Got her a Macho Man, ooh yeah, little T-shirt onesie. We were so excited for this. And we got there, and this was the Raw where Drew McIntyre wrestled Cody Rhodes to start off Raw, right? So you
Okay.
know what I'm talking about. You
Yeah.
remember it. We get there, we get into our seats. Raw starts. We're so excited. We take a photo or two. Drew McIntyre comes out, and his entrance has fireworks, right? And she had those headphones, those ear protector things that you put on babies.
Yeah.
She doesn't like wearing them. She doesn't like having hats on or anything on her head. So she's batting these things away. So as soon as Drew comes out, the loud music, she's kind of not feeling it. Then the explosions, it was all downhill from there. I said to my wife, I said, I think we got to go take her up to the concourse before Cody Rhodes' entrance, which is filled with even more fireworks. So needless to say, we tried. She lasted about 3 minutes at Raw. So I think we'll have to try again when she's a little bit older, but she's certainly been introduced to it.
Well, maybe you should try like pro golf instead. That's a little more quiet.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's that Tiger Woods guy. He does good stuff.
I,
Introduce her to him.
I think golf might be better for this age. We were thinking about a baseball game. We live pretty close to
Makes
where the Angels
sense.
play. So a baseball game may be in her near future, but I don't know. Wrestling for now, I think we
Nah,
just got to hold off until she is okay with wearing those ear protectors.
that makes complete sense, man. And you do so many interviews with so many guys. Like I realized that how far ahead you like do some of these interviews. Like I was talking to a mutual friend, AJ Francis, Top Dollar. He
Oh
was saying
yeah.
that he was going out to go do your show. This is like back in January. I'm like, all right, cool. Did you do the interview? Because it's like February something. I'm like, yeah, I did. I'm like, what happened to it? A couple weeks later, I see it pop up, and you have all these other interviews flowing out at the same time. I'm like, wow, this guy is really like built up his catalog of interviews just to throw out whenever he needs to. How far in advance are you filming?
Sometimes it's well in advance, and other times it's like, man, we really need one right now.
Yeah,
And I'm trying to do all of the interviews that I do in person because I think it's just such a better dynamic if it's
yeah,
possible to be able to do that. And also, I'm doing two a week. So it's two new interviews a week every single week. And that came from the idea of if I keep showing up consistently, my hope is that the audience will also start to show up consistently. So, do the math. That's 104 new interviews a year. So I've got to take them when they come. So right now, I think we have 13 in the bank right now. So that's like 6.5 weeks of content in the bank. And then there's some new ones coming out.
yeah.
Like there's one we're going to record on Monday with, how can I, how can I hint at this without saying this person's name?
Omos, there it is. Omos. Yep, yep, found it.
Let's just say that he's an opportunist. Let's just say that. Yeah. So I
Nice.
have actually, if you look at my Instagram story today, you'll know
Yeah,
exactly who it is.
yeah.
So the thing is, sometimes they're booked well in advance, and other times it's like, let's just, who's available and who can we talk to? So there's some right now that I recorded in March that probably won't be out until May or June. And it's just like, cool, like that's the thing. And then you get opportunities where like I interviewed Jinder Mahal, loved that conversation. We were planning to put it out this week anyway.
Yeah.
And then he unfortunately got released. And I sent him a message and I said, is it still okay with you if we release this? Like that was the plan. He's like, yeah, of course. And then it makes it look like, oh my gosh, he's right on top of things. It's like, no, I got really lucky there.
For sure, man. Like, how do you address like certain kind of topics when it comes to like wrestlers getting released? Obviously, that's a very like touchy subject, and some people don't really want to talk about it. Obviously, there's like 90-day like no compete clauses and whatnot. How do you handle those kind of conversations when it comes to more touchier subjects like getting released?
Well, I think getting released is like it's the subject at hand for a lot of these people, right? Like, especially after the 90 days is up, that's one of the things they want to address. And like, yes, this is the thing that happened, but I'm excited for, what we have in the future here. So I think it's one of those topics that kind of has to be addressed. Everybody has a story behind their release too. Some people, it's a complete shock, came out of nowhere. And then there's other people like Matt Cardona pops into my mind. He took lemons and made the best kind of lemonade, and he's absolutely crushing it. So I think it's one of those things that you say to someone, hey, we're going to talk about this, right? Like you just got released 3 months ago. This is obviously going to be a thing that your fans want to hear about. Are you okay if we talk about this, this, and this? And that's kind of where you take the conversation from there.
That makes sense. Have you ever experienced, and you don't have to say names, obviously, have you ever experienced some kind of pushback towards like maybe those kind of conversations? And how do you like navigate those kind of moments? Because in that situation, it's like, all right, well, do they assume now I'm just this like clout chasing guy trying to get this certain article or certain headline out of them? Like, how do you handle those kind of situations or confrontations, if you will?
I've had times where someone will, after the fact, a day later or a week later, be like, hey, could you take that one part out where I said this? And I'll be like, here's what I'll do. I'll send you the entire interview, the entire raw interview. You can watch it. And if you think that after watching it, it comes across in that kind of way, absolutely. But what happens a lot of times is people will replay something in their mind of, I know I talked about that thing. And how did it come across? Do I come across like good in that? I just want them to usually watch it, and then they watch it, and I'd say 9 times out of 10, they go, "Oh, yeah, that's not nearly as bad as I
Yeah.
thought." I have had other times where, for like legal reasons, people have said, like, "Hey, I know I mentioned this about my release. Not really sure if I'm supposed to talk about that. So if it's okay with you, I'm going to run this by my lawyer, but if it's okay with you, could we take out that one part about me talking about the release in that company?"
Yeah.
And then I will say this. I recorded that interview with Jinder Mahal WrestleMania week. Obviously came out after he was released. He messaged me and said, "Oh, there's just one little part here. Is it okay with you if we take it out?" You won't notice it because it's such a clean edit. But I will say there's like 40 seconds of that interview that I was like happy to take out there because I don't want to say too much here. It may end up leading to something else down the line.
Ooh, we gotta speculate. It's Hook,
Let's
obviously.
speculate
Hook,
wildly.
Hook, Tony Khan, AEW. I mean, like that's what we're all assuming. Obviously, that's what we all have.
Who knows?
You never know. You never know. We will see very soon. If you had like a dream list of interviews, I know it's kind of a basic question, but it's something that people do want to hear. If you had a dream list of like current WWE guys that you would like to interview, it doesn't have to just be wrestler, it can be a personality as well. Who would they be? Maybe like two or three.
There's still a bunch. There's still a bunch that I haven't yet had the chance to interview. Triple H is at the top of that list. I had a poster of Triple H on my wall in high school. Like I was a big Triple H fan. Obviously, also a big Rock fan during that era, and still a
Yeah.
big Rock fan now. So Triple H, for so many reasons, but one of the biggest ones being like he was one of the people that really got me into it in the late 90s. And fast forward here 25 years later and look at the position he's in. A lot of people point to him as being the reason for why wrestling and why WWE is where it's at right now. So I'd love to be able to have a conversation with him. I've never talked to Shawn Michaels. And I think that that has the ability to happen at some point in time, but it hasn't happened yet. And I'll give you one more. Randy Orton. And I
Ooh.
feel like we're on the cusp of making that happen.
You've
What
interviewed
a
his wife before, right?
I interviewed his wife. I
Yeah.
also exchanged a few messages with him, and he was like, "Yeah, I'll do this at some point." And I'm like, "Hey, how about like now? Let's do this. Here's my number. I'm available." So there's another one. And what a freaking career he's had.
Oh
And
yeah.
everybody that talks about Randy says how smooth he is in the ring, how flawless he is in the ring. And I think this is one of those scenarios where we're watching greatness as it's happening right now. And whenever the time comes that Randy decides to hang him up, we're going to look back at now and go, we had that. We were watching that live as it was happening.
Yeah, of course, man. Like I remember 2009, like bald Randy Orton. He was attacking
Oh,
Stephanie, whatnot. I was 9 at the time, so I'm thinking like he's really kicking these people in the head. Like this guy is like crazy. I hated him with such a large passion, and now he's like one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. It's weird how those things just keep on turning.
I
Wrestling's such
love
an
I love
interesting
the
thing.
killer gimmick. Like it was
Yeah,
so good at that time that especially at the start when you weren't expecting it, there'd be a legend just sitting there at ringside or a legend involved in some sort of segment. And out of nowhere, it's an RKO. It's like, oh man, like the way that they were able to get him over as a heel at that point in time was brilliant.
I remember seeing him because this is like way before I started watching. I remember the Mick Foley match from Backlash. That
Of
was
course.
amazing. I remember him like RKOing Stephanie Keebler. Like that sticks in my mind for some reason. I was like, huh. I don't know
Yeah.
why I like him.
Didn't he also like what didn't he just kiss Stacy Keebler? And
Yeah,
and then it was
he's what a weird guy, but in the most interesting way possible. It's a compliment, of course, Randy.
brilliant
You're never watching
character.
this, but if you are Randy, like it's a compliment. But what a weird guy! It's so interesting. I would love to see you talk to him. If I could give
Brilliant.
you a suggestion, possibly,
Please.
Michael Cole. I feel like
Oh,
that
of
kind of
course.
conversation would be amazing just to see
My
that his entire
goodness.
career.
He is so underrated too. Like, and I get that the thing about commentators is a lot of people go back to maybe it's JR or maybe it's Gorilla Monsoon or whoever it happens to be because they were like the soundtrack of your childhood. Michael Cole has been calling some of the biggest moments for 27 years. Like
Mhm.
Michael Cole now is finally getting his flowers, and I love it. And I love that it seems like the reins are off a little bit.
Yeah,
And him being paired with Pat McAfee is just absolute lightning in a bottle. And I hope that it never changes. And I know that Pat McAfee is continuing to get bigger and busier. And at some point, it feels like this is just not going to be able to work into his schedule to be able to do this every single week. But my goodness, I hope that we hang on to this as long as we can.
certainly. Like I never thought that Michael Cole would have a better partner than Jared King Lawler. So to see him now with Pat, I'm like, this might might be better. And it's not a bad thing. I'm like, this is so different that it just works. And I think it's really gotten Michael out of that, oh man, back when you did in 2011, that heel run. Everyone has
Yeah.
a certain opinion about that and whatnot. WrestleMania 27, if certain people didn't necessarily like the show. But yeah, I mean, it's great to see Michael get the flowers that he's getting now. I think he's a very underrated broadcaster as a whole. And I mean,
And
that kind of segue into what led to you becoming a broadcaster. What was like your goal as far as like becoming a broadcaster?
so for me, it just comes down to storytelling. Like at the end of the day, that's what broadcasting is. It's telling stories through various different mediums. But when I was growing up, television and radio were the thing that I just loved. And I remember told this story many times, but I remember getting a Fisher Price tape recorder when I was 4. And it had a little microphone attachment, and I would pretend to be the radio DJs and the radio announcers that I heard. And that's kind of where it started for me. And then fast forward to high school, we had a class called communication studies. And I didn't even realize this when I started going to high school there. We had like this mini TV studio in our high school. And the way that it worked was there were like, it was like a newsroom, like there were the 2 anchor positions, and then you cycled your way through all the other different positions. So you were a camera operator, a floor director, VTR operator, audio engineer, assistant director, all of these different spots. And then sometimes you were in front of the camera, which happened to be the spot that I loved. I just felt most comfortable with. And that for me kind of led to this idea of if communication studies is a high school class, wait a second, is that something I can major in college? It is. And it seemed like such a long shot, Malcolm. Like the idea of this kid from Pickering, Ontario, Canada, being able to even be seen on any TV station was such a long shot. But I remember I had an epiphany in my senior year of college. I had the best time in college. I lived with 4 of my best friends. And I woke up one day right before graduation. I was like, oh my gosh, at the end of this year, we're going to graduate. And then we're going to have to go work for, the rest of our lives. And it was in that exact moment that I was like, it's not fun and games anymore because that's what a lot of college was. Like I was having such a blast with my friends and yeah, classes were fun as well. But like after this, after the cap and gown, it's Monday to Friday, 9 to 5 for, the foreseeable future. And in that exact moment, I decided I just didn't want to have a job that I hated going to. So bare minimum, don't hate your job. That was what it started at. And then best case scenario, maybe I could find something that I actually enjoy doing every day. That's where it was. And an internship turned into a job that turned into another great job. And I've been so incredibly fortunate to be able to do this basically since I graduated.
That's amazing. I feel like I kind of went down memory road a little bit as you started to say some of that stuff. As far as like, oh, like at the end of the semester, it's time to go actually do it. I remember the last like 2 or 3 weeks before graduation, I was like, wait, I have to like try and apply and actually do what I wanted to do. So the first thing I did when I graduated, I drove to a wrestling show and I was like,
Love
all right,
that.
Zen moment, in order to get myself together. I'm like, all right, I'll address the real world after the matches, of course. I gotta watch the matches. But as far as like, did you pick communication because you're bad at math? I mean, I hate to ask it bluntly. I suck at math, so I have to ask that.
I was great at math till like ninth grade. And then a
I
lot
feel
of
that.
the numbers were replaced with letters. And I'm like, oh, what is going on here? For me, it was just, it really came down to like that class just, it gave you the ability to have a little bit more fun. And I think the the thing about math and science is it's very objective, right? Like it's this number plus this number equals this. Like, and there's no argument about that. That's how it is. That's a fact.
Yeah.
And the thing I love about communication studies is, and this is also the thing I love about storytelling, and the thing that really got me into television news, which is where I began my career, is you and I could go to the exact same event today. And then when we go back home and tell a friend or a family member about it, our stories will be similar, but they'll be different. And that's what really drew me into it. Like, where does your story begin? Oh, wow. So you started with that part of it. That's interesting. Well, this part for me was the most interesting. That's what I always loved about communication studies and about broadcasting is like, you're able to put your spin on it a little bit. You're able to take the audience along for the ride. Maybe they're not able to go to WrestleMania or the Oscars or the Grammys, but through your camera lens and through your microphone, you can bring the audience along with you. And I love that.
And that all that leads to is like going to like WrestleMania 40, doing all these incredible interviews with all these amazing wrestlers and whatnot. How did it feel to be at WrestleMania 40? I mean, I was there, you were there, a lot of people were there. What did it feel like to you to be at the 40th anniversary of something that you've been watching since you were a child?
That was a great show. That was such a good show. Both nights were good. Obviously, I think the end of night two was something we're going to be talking about for a long time to come. That was my 13th WrestleMania. And to
Whoa.
even just be saying that out loud is pretty incredible. But I love it, man. Like it's so cool to be able to be at this thing. It's like our Christmas, right? If you're a
Right?
wrestling fan, WrestleMania is like our Christmas. It's our Super Bowl. It's like the thing that you look forward to every single year. And the other thing that's so great about WrestleMania is you don't even have to be a wrestling fan to like love it and appreciate like just the grand stage of it all. So it was cool, man. It was cool being able to spend some time with you in the press box and to be able to watch history like literally unfold before our eyes. It was amazing.
Yeah, I was personally in it more for the SmackDown before WrestleMania because Omos was a part of that. He did not win the Andre Battle Royal, but you know, it's okay. We
Are
bounced
you the
back.
biggest Omosapien on the planet?
Physically and literally, yes. I don't think I can't imagine someone that is larger and actually a bigger fan of Omos. Not even fan, Homo sapien than I. You know, we're all part of the Legion together. Are you an Homo sapien, Chris?
Of course, I'm an Omosapien, aren't we all?
Yes, we all should be. I just want
But
to
I've
make sure
never
that's a
met
good
someone
one.
who loves Omos more than you.
I don't know why anyone else doesn't love Omos as much as
Why
I do.
is he your guy?
Because these are all the reasons I tell everyone. Because he's tall and Nigerian and super tall. And did I mention Nigerian?
He is tall
Amazingly
as well. You're
tall.
right.
Is
Yeah.
super Nigerian. He also almost bought his wedding ring from my girlfriend's mom's jewelry store. But
Oh, there it is. That's it right
there's the
there.
real reason.
That's it.
Yeah, man. Who are some of your favorite wrestlers? I know that's a very, again, boring question, but who are some of your favorite wrestlers?
The Rock was really the person that got me like really attached to wrestling. I was not a wrestling fan. I mean, I was aware of wrestling, but I wasn't a huge wrestling fan till high school. And
Yeah,
the reason I became a wrestling fan is in the 90s, but really pre-internet, you did this crazy thing called talking on the phone. So, you'd call your best friend almost every night after school and you just chat.
yeah.
And my best friend Vince lived like one town over. And I knew that every night at 9 o'clock, our phone call would abruptly come to an end because he was a huge wrestling fan. And one Monday night, I was like, all right, look, I'll turn it on, TSN in Canada, and I will watch this. And then when the first commercial break comes up, we'll finish our thought. And he was like, all right, great. Turn it on. And we were watching it together. And I'm on the phone. I'm like, oh, who's this guy? He's like, oh, that guy's The Rock. And I'm like, oh, wow. He's like, wait till he does this thing called the People's Elbow. And there was just something about The Rock's charisma that just drew me in. And it was in the ring and when he was kind of promo, there was just something about him that you couldn't take your eyes off of him when he was on the screen. So it was Rock then. It's still The Rock now. Randy Orton has been a favorite of mine for a long time. What Will Ospreay does in the ring is something that humans shouldn't even be capable of the things that he does.
Mm-mm.
And the thing that I really appreciate about Will is he makes it look so authentic. Like,
Yes.
I don't know how he does some of these things
Yes.
and how his opponent walks away. Like it's a really amazing thing. So there's three right off the top of my head.
You had an opportunity to say Omos in there, but you didn't. So,
And then,
that's
of
okay.
course, and my fourth one on the top of my head, of course, is a Moss.
Okay, just had
Yeah,
to make sure. That was kind
he's
of
just a
weird that you
great
didn't say it.
dude.
That
He's
was
just a
kind of
great dude.
Of course, he's amazing. He's the greatest that ever lived. But as you start to talk more about like your channel, I mean, like there's so many elements to your channel that makes your brand, Chris Van Vleet, work. I mean, you have your main channel, you have your clips, your YouTube shorts, your Instagram, Twitter, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What, in your opinion, took you from the certain level of like, all right, I'm doing a lot of interviews and whatnot, to now I'm a real wrestling creator and interviewer on a massive scale that you are now?
Thank you, by the way. It's very nice of you to say.
Or-
I think one of them was just early access. I think that's got to be one of the things. Like I've been interviewing wrestlers since 2007, not regularly, but my very first interview was with Bobby Lashley, 2007, when I was a TV host for a show on MTV2 Canada. So I think that that was one of the things that kind of really set the framework. Was I was already a wrestling fan, and now I'm working for various different TV stations where, as an entertainment reporter, you're interviewing actors and comedians and directors. And then every once in a while, WWE or TNA comes to town. And who better to talk to them than the guy who loves wrestling? And I felt like I was speaking their language too. Like I think a lot of times when they would go to the local radio station or the local TV station, it was very much like, all right, well, Raw's in town. Tickets started $20. And thank you, John Kenna for being here. Like I think it was like that early on. Here I was going like Jeff Hardy. I'll never forget it. Walked in the doors of our TV station in Cleveland, 2011. And I'm like just peppering him with like fan questions. Like, I wanted him to know, like, speak your language. Like, this isn't just going to be some like, cut and paste interview. This is going to be like, I'm going to talk to you about your career. And I think that that was one of the things. Like, it was early on being able to talk to these people 10 plus years ago. I think what really accelerated it was around 2016, 2017. Instead of me waiting for those shows to come to town and me waiting to have them on the TV station, I would go, oh, there's this independent wrestling show that's just around the corner. What if I were to reach out to the promoter and say, hey, could we come to you the morning of, get a quick clip, promote the show, and then I'll put the remainder of the interview up on my YouTube channel? And they never said no to that, of course. So I think that that was another thing, was like going out of my way, figuring it out. Oh, this is an hour away. I can make that happen. Oh, I'm going to WrestleMania with my friends. I'm going to WrestleMania 27 with my friends, and they've got this thing called WrestleMania Access. Do you think they'd let me interview Cody Rhodes wearing a face mask? That's one of my very first interviews on my channel, if you want to go look that up. Would they let me interview Dolph Ziggler? And I talked to him about both of us living in Cleveland. That was like, it was right place, right time. And I think that it was the compound effect, just continuing to do those all the time and really just not stopping. I think consistency is another big thing. And that's where you really win too.
I appreciate that for sure, man. And I mean, obviously, your consistency worked. I mean, it led to you being a part of AEW. You're part of the first ever Dynamite. We were actually part of first ever Dynamite. We just played different roles. You were an interviewer, I was an audience. But that's okay. We all have our roles in life. That's fine. What did it feel like for you to be a part of this like groundbreaking wrestling movement of AEW at the time, and now seeing where it is now?
It was so cool. Like to be one tiny little minuscule part of that very first show. And look, it was also the very first wrestling show on that wasn't WWE in almost 20 years. Like to be part of this first wrestling show on TNT in yeah, almost 20 years. It was wild. It was crazy. And it was just a series of really fortunate events that led up to that. Like in 2019, people were so hungry for something else. WWE had dominated the market for so long. And then when AEW was announced, I was fortunate to get an interview with Chris Jericho that led to an interview with Tony Khan, that led to an interview with Cody Rhodes the day before the very first Double or Nothing. And that led to an interview with the Young Bucks and Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy at the time. There were so many big interviews at that time. And they eventually said, hey, would you want to be part of this first show? It's in Washington, D.C. It's on this date. And what was so interesting was the location hadn't been announced yet. So the fact that they were kind of like letting me in and being like, yeah, like it's in Washington, D.C. Do you want to be part of it? I was like, yeah. And all that I knew was I was going to be part of that one show. I didn't know what I'd be doing in it, but I was like, I'm in. let's do this. And I was fortunate enough to be called a few weeks later, and I did a very small segment in Charleston, West Virginia. It's like episode number 5. I was interviewing the Rock and Roll Express, and the very mean Santana and Ortiz came out and beat them up in front of me. And it was just so cool, man. Like, so cool. And what's funny is here we are 5 years later talking about it, and most people don't even remember it. And I love that. Please don't go back and watch it either. It is not worth rewatching.
I remember you being there. I was like, yo, I watch him on YouTube. You're like, who's that? I'm like, that's Chris Van Vleet. What are you talking about? Like, you should know who this is. Like, my guy. But
That's crazy.
since then, Chris, have you ever been contacted as far as joining another wrestling company?
I'm not one of the major ones. I've done a lot of work on the independents as either a ring announcer, a guest ring announcer, backstage interviewer, but I'll never say never, right? That's the big catchphrase in wrestling is never say never. So who knows? And also, who knows? I feel like I should have brought some sunglasses for this, but who knows? Maybe my wrestling alter ego, Chris Sharp,
Chris Sharp.
may pop
Ooh,
up at some point. Who knows? Because what the world needs is another 40 something rookie making their wrestling debut.
I think so as well. I mean, yes, everyone needs that.
Nobody needs
What was
that.
your finisher? Can I ask that real quick? What was your
Yeah, of course, it was terrible. Backyard wrestling, right? So, like, anything goes. There's no psychology in backyard wrestling. My setup move was That's Incredible. Just Incredible's like twisting tombstone.
yeah?
Wild. That somehow didn't do it, no, I wasn't able to pin them with that. So that would be the setup move for a Swanton bomb, which I don't want to pat myself in the back here, but Matt Hardy said I had a pretty nice Swanton bomb. And I mean, he's kind of an expert when it comes to Swanton bombs.
True. I mean, that is a big compliment, honestly. Wow, wow, very impressive, sir. I would love to see you wrestle in certain places, not WWE, maybe on Indies, maybe a little DPW, a little Deadlock Pro Wrestling.
Yeah,
So I can be very
I
interested.
don't, I just, yeah, maybe I'll wrestle in my dreams tonight. That might be maybe I'll just, when my daughter gets a little bit older, we'll show her like, a very safe razor's edge or something like that into a pool.
Justifiable. Justifiable, man. As we start to wrap this up, I want to talk about how creators can get more involved in this space. Obviously, there's a lot of wrestling podcast interviewers trying to come up on the scene right now. What's like your advice for them as far as like how to grow in this space?
The biggest thing is just start. Like, I've got 2 words for you. Just start. And I think that too many people overthink all of this. Oh man, I need to get this certain camera. I need to get this certain microphone. I got to come up with a name for it. Literally just start and be well aware that if you're a podcaster, your first few episodes are not going to be good. If you're a YouTuber, your first few videos, they're going to suck. But just be aware that each one is going to get a little bit better than the next one. So, number 1, just start. And number 2, be consistent. If you're going to be a podcaster, put out an episode every week and be consistent with it. It's every Wednesday. And whatever's going on in your life, whatever's going on in the world, you put out an episode every single Wednesday because you said you were going to do that. Because it's way too easy to skip one and then now you've skipped 2. It's just like going to the gym. You know this. And now you've skipped 3 and that chocolate cake over there looks really delicious. So just be consistent with it and don't judge it week to week. Judge it more like year to year. Like, have big goals rather than going like, oh man, only 14 people watched my video last week. I'm going to stop. Like, if it's 14 this week and it's 17 next week and it's 19 the week after that, you are heading in the right direction.
If a podcaster is watching this right now and they're like, I feel like I've been putting in the work, I'm getting some decent views and whatnot. How do I get to that next step of maybe gaining access into these bigger companies like the WWEs and AEWs of the world? How would they get to that step if they're looking to maybe accomplish that in the future?
I think that people need to realize that step 2 comes after step 1 and step 3 comes after step 2. And like, just keep leveling up like that rather than trying to like jump from step 3 to step 17 or whatever that happens to be. Just keep working at it. Like, keep plugging away, keep getting a little bit better. Like, if this episode is better than your last one, then you're heading in the right direction. If this video is better than the last one, then you're heading in the right direction. And just keep doing that, keep compounding it. And also be here for the long game. Maybe you've been doing it for 6 months or a year. Just keep going with it. And it's eventually going to happen.
Chris, as we start to wrap this up, so far on your entire platforms, your brand so far, Chris Van Vleet, what's become muscle memory for you? What's become something that you just wake up every morning like, all right, I need to do this, this, and this in order for my brand to continuously be successful?
I mean, I end every episode with it, and it's because I start every day with it and end every day with it. It's gratitude. Like, I'm so well aware that I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing right now without being thankful for the things that I have. So that's it every single day, no matter where I am, no matter what's going on in my life. Like, it's being grateful for the things that I have rather than being upset for about the things that I don't have. That for sure is muscle memory for me.
Guys, this is the Joe Rogan of pro wrestling. I mean, like, hey, we gotta call it when we see it, man. This is the guy, the GOAT, the legend, Chris Van Vleet. You've been very generous with your time, man. Where can they find your social media real quick if they're not already following you? But I'm sure they are.
Could I have just 1% of Joe Rogan's money? That'd be nice.
That
That'd be
would
real
be
nice. At Chris Van Vleet across social media. And if you're watching this on YouTube, go follow both of my subscribe. Follow, they're all the same thing. Subscribe to both my YouTube channels. The main one, Chris Van Vleet, where the full interviews are, and then CVV clips for the most fun, memorable moments from all those interviews.
Chris, thank you so much for your time. My name is Malcolm. This is Muscle Memory, and we're out.
Going up like 1,000. I'm a flex just like a muscle man Malcolm. We going up like 1,000. I'm a flex just like a muscle man Malcolm. When it just like 1, 2, 3. If you like the channel, this will squeeze. If you like the channel, this will squeeze. If you like the channel.